topic is about lifelong learning, which sounds, I would say, even a bit philosophical. And to answer the question of how the Alumni Foundation can support the members' lifelong learning journey, we have no other than our very own Mr. President, Jeroen Van Lent. And just to introduce Jeroen, for those of you who haven't had the chance to meet him personally, he has already quite some experience in European institutions, especially in the area of higher education. Before taking over the EITITA Alumni Board, he had already served in the board of the Erasmus Student Network, or ESN, which is one of the largest pan-European student volunteer organizations. And even though he's very Dutch, so for those of you who know him, he's a tall guy, so he's Dutch, but he's based in Belgium. So he works now for the European University Foundation. So without further ado, Jeroen, please tell us a bit more about this idea of lifelong learning. So the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you very much, José Carlos. Such a formal introduction. I didn't expect that, to be honest. I hope you don't mind. I'm making it a little less formal because I'm hoping this is a place where we can all share. As much as I have some ideas myself on what we can do with lifelong learning, I really want to make a disclaimer in the beginning as well that I'm not an expert. There's people that study in the field of education that know a lot in terms of how people learn and what can be done to facilitate learning from people. But I do have some ideas, and what I would like to do with this presentation is to, or with this talk, is to get a bit of a discussion started, to get a bit of a conversation starter that hopefully later, with some input from you, we can further branch out on this topic and see what the EIT Digital Alumni can do in the field of lifelong learning. I'm also very happy to see that the counter is now on 30 people that are attending this, and hopefully many more that will follow this online later on. Since I will be switching now to the presentation which I have, which is full screen, just shout if something goes wrong in terms of technical, the connection breaks or whatever, and let's hope for the best that we will get out of this without any problems. So yes, lifelong learning is the topic of today. What I would like to do is to highlight once again what we have in the Slido. José Carlos already introduced the tool to you a little bit earlier, but I think it's good to have a little bit of a closer look at what this can do. So when you scan the QR code or you join on the website, you don't need to log in, you don't need to create an account. Probably they save some data from what we're all doing, but I hope it won't be too much of a privacy concern. There's 3 tabs on the top that we will be using throughout this sort of discussion, and later in the end we'll use this as a basis to also guide our more informal discussion that we will have in this call. So the first tab that you will find in Slido is Q&A, which basically allows you throughout the presentation to type questions that you would like to ask to me as a speaker, or potentially to the rest of the audience as well. You can upvote questions that others have asked. So you can, if you see something that you would also like to get clarified, then please do upvote those questions. So in the end, we know what to answer first, what to discuss first. Then there's the middle tab, which contains ideas, in which I would really like to encourage you to write down your ideas. What can we do to support your learning? That's the topic of those ideas. And what we'll do in the end, this will serve the basis of the discussion that we'll have all together. So the ideas that will be written down here, we'll go through them all together. We'll probably ask the person that wrote it down to provide a bit more context, a bit more explanation. And then we'll launch a little discussion around it. And then the third tab that we have there in Slido is for polls, which I will use at some places in this presentation to measure a little bit what your opinion is, and just to test how many of you are still there, because I cannot see the call. So good for me to know if there's still 30 or if it's more by now. So yeah, I hope that's all clear. I hear some more people joining, but that's all good, I assume. Okay. Jumping into the topic, lifelong learning and the role of the EIT Digital Alumni. I would like to start with a quote from a very renowned source called Wikipedia. If you Google what lifelong learning means, this is what the nice definition is that Wikipedia gives you. And it practically says that lifelong learning is the ongoing, voluntary, and self motivated pursuit of knowledge for either personal or professional reasons. Therefore, it's not only enhances social inclusion, active citizenship, and personal development, but also self sustainability, as well as competitiveness and employability. And actually, I think this definition is quite nice because it also shows directly, in my opinion, why lifelong learning is so important for the EIT Digital alumni. It can help us to continue developing ourselves, to make ourselves stand out in terms of others when we look at employability, but also just to create better persons, to continue the sort of journey that EIT Digital started. And I think the mindset that EIT Digital Master School or other educational programs gave as well, in terms of never giving up on learning, always staying curious. So with that, I think it's time for my first question to ask you. So I hope you all managed to log into the Slido. If you haven't, you will see it on the next slide as well. And I would really like to ask you, what would you want to learn, so we can discuss a little bit further how we can make that happen. Now is the test if this works or not. So let us know, what would you like to learn? We need the music again, José Carlos. This is an important moment to.
I'm telling you, we need some good background music.
Next time we try this. I see there are some things coming in. We have deep learning methods, product management, leadership, design principles, EU policy making, product management, how to manage a small team. Nice. So for now, there's 10 people that have open Slido. That's good to know. You know, in the same time I'm testing you, see how many of you are having it open. I know some of you were cooking, so I won't judge too much. But yeah, in general, many nice things that are there. Public presentation, how to lead an organization. So a lot has to do with leadership and project management, actually. Very good. There is another one. Well, moving on to the next slide. I actually think this closes the poll. Sorry for those of you that were just voting. But well, lucky you. I think many of these skills and experiences that you have been asking for are actually available within our community. So I guess that concludes it, right? We have enough people here in the call that can teach each other and can show can show the skills and lead the way towards leadership, policy making, product management, and so on. No, I'm kidding, of course. I think it's good to see within this call how we can do that. And with that, I want to make a slight push again to Slido. Remember to submit your ideas there, because later this will serve the basis for discussion. But before that, I will highlight some of my thoughts on this topic. I think to begin with, it's important to realize that there's two different skills that we can have. And I think most of you will be familiar with this. There's absolutely nothing new to this. That on the one hand, there's hard skills that we can obtain, not like the hard, not comfortable looking chair. And then there's the soft skills, which is more like the sofa. But of course, it is important to identify what type of skill you would be interested in to learn and what kind of skills we altogether would like to build, because I think they require a very different approach. Just to summarize, for those that are not familiar, hard skills are the skills that we can learn, the skills that we can implement, like learning a new programming language or learning how to cook. While soft skills are the skills that you can't directly put a finger on and are more in the sense of intercultural understanding, a bit of social interaction, presentation skills, these sorts of things. So actually, within the suggestions that you made, there's something to be seen of both, that we hopefully can figure out later how to work with. Within the different skills that are there, I think for now we have seen quite some formats passing by our community in terms of what we have been doing. I think especially the first three in this list are not unknown to what we have been doing. Often there's talks like we're having now, or there's lectures in which there's a bit more formal presentation of something that's happening. We've had workshops at our annual meetings, all trying to already provide a form of lifelong learning and teach you different things that were not there yet. But in my brainstorming that I was doing while putting together this conversation starter in terms of slides, I thought of some more things that could be there. Some of them are already done by EIT Digital. Others are potentially untapped that we can look into. And just to give you an idea, to get started with some things, trainings, online courses, massive online courses could be an option. I was actually thinking podcasts could be an interesting way to learn. Personally, I learn a lot from listening to interesting podcasts from people out there that have interesting things to say. Challenges where you engage with others, and potentially even these Tuesday afterworks in which we try to cover a topic or learn from each other could form a place for lifelong learning. So again, we're gonna move to the Slido to see what you would like to learn, especially in what way you would like to learn things. And now with this question, I actually want to hint a little bit at what in the end of this presentation is the objective from the board, from us, of course. We want to start a group of people that's going to work on lifelong learning. It's going to work on how we are, as a community, going to move ourselves forward, learn more things. And the outputs of this, I think, will serve as a pretty nice starting point for them to investigate, to plan what kind of things our alumni would like to learn. So this question is just a little bit of a measurement to see what would be your most desired ways of picking up new information. And no guarantee that we will start recording podcasts, for example, but I think it gives an interesting idea of what we could do. So far, the biggest winner is the workshops, the talks, the challenges. I see the afterworks are climbing up, so that's a win for the first one. Let's see. I'm also happy to see there's 19 people that figured out how to get this Slido open now. Very good. Well, thank you very much for casting the vote. I think it's pretty clear that workshops and talks, the way that we were already going, is pretty successful and much appreciated. But it's also interesting to see that podcasts and challenges and these other things have a pretty okay score in the preferred way of learning. So I think with that in mind, I wanted to have a little bit of a look together with you at what has happened so far in the field of learning, of lifelong learning. José Carlos already hinted at a couple when he was introducing the topic, but of course we have been doing our usual type of events. For those of you that have seen more presentations that me or the previous board have given, I think this slide hasn't changed in a long time, and these are the usual events that we say we organize. But the majority of them, all of them, actually contribute to a lifelong learning environment, right? There's talks, there's workshops, company visits, all with the aim to show the alumni a bit more what is happening in the spectrum of our field, the field that we work in, IT, programming, user interaction design, and so on. But yeah, they are usual. I'm sorry to call them the usual. I know they're still very good and often take a lot of effort to organize, but I think we can do more. We have done some other things as well in the past, led by Shikar. We had a mentorship program that was established some years ago that really allowed individual alumni to sign up to say, I want to become a mentor, or I want to become a mentee, so someone who's being mentored. And the objective of this was to receive guidance and support. I was checking a bit our page on the website because for the well, for the awake ones of you that may have noticed that this page is not available anymore, that's a topic that we should discuss today and see how we take on these the future of such programs. But the mentorship program, when it was founded and carried out within our association, actually covered a lot of ground. So there was business advice that you could ask for, there was career advice that you could ask for, there was different hard skills that you could ask for someone to teach you stuff, soft skills in terms of mentoring when holding a presentation. But all of this was done peer to peer. And well, the conclusion now that we had a couple months ago together with Shikar was that we would discontinue the mentorship program as it was in the current shape. And we would launch together with you in this call, in this discussion, a brainstorming on how we could take this to the next level, how we could continue working on this topic, but in a bit more sustainable way. I really want to thank Shikar. I actually don't know if he's with us today in the call, but he put a lot of effort in making sure that there were people on the one hand and on the other hand ready to mentor, and to make sure that everyone who would request a mentor would actually be able to get one. But of course, not a very easy task in an organization like ours that's growing. In addition to that, we had the Mastermind Groups for some time, which was an initiative that was started by Roman, with a similar approach, but slightly different. I don't know if some of you might know the concept of a small group of people that meets at the same time every week to discuss progress in their life, to challenge themselves, to make sure that as a person you have your next week planned out and you are as sharp as possible. This was the objective, to have small groups, three to five people, weekly sessions at the same day, every week, the same time, often online because people would live in different places, and would be up to an hour, really to, with that group, keep each other sharp and on point in the creation of a startup, the next big project you're pursuing, or just staying focused in your job. We haven't talked with Roman lately, but also this initiative has unfortunately faded away into the background a little bit in the stuff that has been happening in the last couple of years within our community. So I think it's also good to have this on the radar, that something like this could be interesting. And I think it's very important to say that this sort of peer-to-peer support that was there, alumni supporting alumni, should continue to exist in my opinion. But then, as I said as well, I believe we can do better. I believe we can dream bigger on things that we can do in the field of lifelong learning. And I think the next slides, I need to make a disclaimer, they may not be realistic, but they're really the conversation starter that I was referring to, in terms of the dreams that myself and some of the other board members before me and with me have had. So would be very curious later also to hear your opinion on some of these things. And primarily how we can take this lifelong learning concept to the next level, right? How can we do this further, more inclusive for the whole community with new cool skills and so on. One of the things that we have been playing with is what if we would reach out for professional training, bring in expertise from outside our community, to facilitate skills that we don't have yet, really have this new and refreshing vibe to it, something that we cannot do, maybe making paintings or doing baking, these kind of things. No, I'm talking about a bit more serious field, of course. With the possibility to get certification for that as well in some possible cases, and really take it to the next level. So until now we were doing peer-to-peer support. What could be worth investigating, could be worth interesting, is to further expand this into the field of professional training and bringing some people from the outside into our community to teach us into fields that we would like to know more about. Looking back at some of the things in the first question that you answered, how to run a team, how to run a company, these are of course topics that are very high on the agenda of many of us, and also important topics for external trainers. Of course, a disclaimer, as I said, this is not hasn't gone through a feasibility check yet, whether this is possible or not, and I would love to hear what you're thinking about it as well. But this could, of course, get very expensive, something that I'm not sure the Alumni Foundation could afford, but potentially discounts or different lower pricing for opportunities is something that we can look into. And we have already done as well, together with the EIT Digital summer schools and professional schools that they're having. In a second step, I mentioned already that this could be very expensive, but there might also be a profit or a profitable side on it. What if we would consider sharing more of our knowledge outside of our community than we do now, sharing our knowledge to the world? I believe personally, firmly, that we are the experts on digital transformation. Many of us have had good education within EIT Digital and impressive CVs from before. With now also, interesting jobs, startups that we are running. So I think there's no people better in many of these topics than we are as EIT Digital alumni. In a way, we gather a very nice group of interesting minds within our community. And I actually believe that might be worth something, so to say. Not that I'm planning to sell out our skills or expertise, but I think it could be interesting to investigate if we can share our knowledge with externals, build a reputation as these knowledgeable experts on digital transformation, and potentially support initiatives that EIT Digital is carrying out within their accelerator or other parts of the ecosystem. Even other kicks might be interesting. EIT Health, I know, is working a lot in data science these days as well. And I think maybe we can fulfill a gap there. Also there, a disclaimer, as I said, I would love to hear what you're thinking later on. Is this really possible, right? Now, another question from from our Slido that we thrown in. I would be interested to see if you're interested in looking into this more professional training opportunities, or whether you think, well, maybe we have enough of our hands when we do this internally. Because as I said, these are probably expensive endeavors for us for an expensive direction for us to go in. But at the same time, also that would take significant amount of time from the board or a working group to investigate. So same as for the last question that I asked you in the Slido, I think it's a nice measurement now to get the working group to slowly get started on certain things. We were just on 17 before, so I'm hoping to get the 17 again before moving on. I see the majority of you would be interested in it. So I think I can already say that from the perspective of the board, and from a working group that we'll of course continue seeing whether this is feasible, whether this is an option for us to do, and what can happen there. But thanks a lot for providing input. Then a last thing that I actually wanted to cover here, or second to last thing in my brainstorming of ideas, is that of the concept of training for trainers. I don't know how many of you are aware with the concept of training for trainers, but this is a concept that's often explored in youth organizations like the Erasmus Student Network or others, where we see, okay, how can we create a pool of trainers that we somehow can set a quality control on? How can we make sure that people actually know how to present, know how to train, know how to transfer knowledge, and have an understanding of how people are interpreting this knowledge and learning in the best way possible? I think we are far away from this in the EIT Digital alumni, because there's many steps to take. But what I do think is it would be very interesting to investigate us potentially offering a very small scale training for trainers, where some of our alumni could learn more on how people learn, what kind of methodologies are out there to present, how do we make something engaging, something interesting, how to throw in some Slido into random slides that that we are presenting. No, I'm kidding, of course. But I think there's many interesting things that we can learn together on how to make our content that we present more interactive, more interesting, and what are the sort of skills that are coming out of there. So in general, I mean, for me, there are so many opportunities in this field that we could go in, but at the same time, so much more to figure out in how we will do that. That actually, I will put this slide again later. But the board is really interested in starting a working group on lifelong learning. Couple of individuals, couple of members of our association, to together look more into these interesting topics. What are the formats that we can use? How we can learn from each other? What are sort of interesting things to cover? Can we learn from others externally? Is that possible? Can we share knowledge with others? And this Afterwork is supposed to launch a bit the discussion on this topic, but also supposed to be a call to action for those of you that are interested to drop us an email on alumni@eitdigital.eu. I see I missed an L in the slide, but I'm sure you know how to write EIT Digital. And to get this topic started, because I think there is so much that we can do here, and so much that's not figured out yet, that there's a huge amount of potential to shape the future of our organization with more work in the direction of lifelong learning. I think that's it for me. I would say keep learning, and thanks a lot for your attention. We will have now some time for some questions and some ideas to further discuss before we'll actually start the more informal discussion.
Thanks a lot, Jeroen, for the presentation. So what we're going to do now is beginning with the Q&A. I will read through some of the comments and questions on Slido, and also any questions that you write directly on the chat on this Google Meet conference. In case you want to ask directly, there is also the option that you could request us to do so. Just send the hand emoji, and I will also, that's another option for you to ask. But we have a couple of comments already in Slido. The first one is about online courses, so different options that might be available. And it says, online courses are quite good to keep up to date with technical skills. What about any recommendations or discounts for good online courses that you could provide?
I think it's a great idea. This is, of course, also something that I think should be more looked into by the working group that we're hopefully starting after today. Of course, also actually Davor, as our new partnership and outreach officer, has started looking into various opportunities. But I think indeed there's a lot of possibility to look into external platforms to collaborate on online courses outside of the EIT Digital ecosystem.
Perhaps to add a bit more on that discussion as well, Finnish universities, well, since now I'm part of 2 universities here in Finland, I have been very actively involved in providing free content, so making their courses free and available for everyone. I just share in the chat 2 examples of courses they are doing. One is organized by Aalto and the other one by University of Helsinki. And this last one became very popular, Elements of AI. So they basically promoted this quite heavily. And it has a few thousand users already registered to that. Then also, in case you're a student in some of these universities, or you have some enrollment in a Finnish university, you can also access courses from different universities for free. So there is the option, I think, that in our community to if anyone feels that can share the skills and help us develop some of these contents to reuse, this is also a good option. Now the next question we have is about links, place to share links, books, podcasts, knowledge by topic. I guess this refers to provide some space on the website, perhaps, but I'm not sure if that would be possible because of privacy or IP reasons. We have another comment about working or expertise groups. A good idea could be working or expertise groups, a bit like in Meetup. Groups of people that are experts and not so experts, but can share knowledge, ideas, etc. What are your thoughts on this, Jeroen? Does it sound like the mastermind groups?
I think it could be interesting as well. I see it's good that there's so many ideas flowing already for us together to look into. Yeah, I think they're very valuable to investigate further.
Actually, I had also a question for you, which, by the way, we totally did not rehearse these questions, so Jeroen doesn't know the questions I had prepared. But the first question I wanted to ask you is, why does the ATUTA Alumni Foundation need a working group for lifelong learning? Why doesn't do it directly through the alumni board?
That's a good question. um, well, I think as much as myself, also you, José Carlos, and others, I think would be very passionate and interested to work on this topic. I think unfortunately the time that we're having at hand as board members is not enough to fully look into that as much as we would want to. I think the challenge of being a board member, I think some of the previous board members that are here in the call as well can confirm, is that there is a lot of operational work that comes with these positions in the EIT Digital Alumni Board. This is not at all to complain. I think we're all enjoying a lot what we are doing. But with that, we realize there is a potential to work more on these topics. And that's why we would be very interested to start a working group to work with a couple of people that have more knowledge and interest in this topic with us, to see how we can lift that to the next level. And I also think it's not a working group that is supposed to work on its own, and give some results to the board. The way I see it personally is really an extension of what we can do all together, and we'll work together on making this as successful as possible.
And a follow-up question to that one, what about financial support from the foundation? So would this working group receive any financial support? And if so, what kind of help would they get to do these activities?
Why are you asking me these questions?
Well, we also have Paul in the call, so
Yeah.
perhaps he could also jump in.
No, I have to make a disclaimer. I mean, we are here starting a fairly new type of working group, something that's more topic investigation based that we haven't seen yet. Until now, we had working groups in place or working group rules in place that individuals in cities could apply for funding to organize events and so on. Of course, we have the intention to have similar funding available for this working group. But we still need to figure out together how we're going to allocate that funding and with what rules that would come and how we can make that happen. As I said, some of the lifelong learning content might also be very costly. So I think this is something that potentially even together with the working group we have to figure out and see what is the best way to go around that.
We have a comment about the location. So one of the comments we have in Slido says, one problem for me is that I'm in London and there are hardly any events here. I feel if you're not in Stockholm, you're missing out. Would this lifelong learning working group be constrained by or limited to any geographical location, or someone who's in London could somehow also get involved and contribute to it or benefit from it?
I would say so. I mean, this is a bit of an obvious answer that I think everyone is giving in these days. But the challenges that we are facing now in doing more online events are real, and I think it's something that we potentially also should continue in the future, taking into account that some people are in places where we don't have a Stockholm CLC that is amazingly welcoming with coffee all the time. Of course, this is something that the working group can further investigate. But I think we also need to limit and see that the facilities within those cities where strong CLCs are better, and that it's therefore easier to organize something in these places. But I would always be a strong advocate of doing more things online and more things like this. If the Tuesdays after work are a successful trend, then this is something that we also may be able to build upon and do more.
Another question I had regarding this topic. So you talked about mentorship program and mastermind groups. Perhaps it wasn't very clear for the audience. What were the reasons why these two initiatives did not move on or did not continue? So, in your view, was it this scalable, or what was the exact problem that didn't allow this very good initiatives to continue in our community?
You're asking the real questions, José Carlos. No, the thing is, I wasn't there myself when these initiatives were set up and were established. I think they were quite successful for the time being. But what I see as one of the big problems to be there was that they were pushed by one person. Shikar and Roman were very active and very engaged, but there was no big team behind them aside from an individual that was supporting the board and implementing these sorts of things. What my suggestion, or what our suggestion would be in now launching a working group, would be to have a team of a couple of people able to follow up with us to spread the workload a bit across different people, have different people to brainstorm with, to spar with, to make sure that you can share your ideas, and hopefully with that also create a bit of sustainability aside from this one-man initiatives that we had in the past.
Which connects perfectly to the next question. So, someone asks, how can I propose ideas for lifelong learning or this working group if something pops into my mind later? So, how to go on with this? How to get involved?
So, as I already showed the slide before, I think we can put it on later as well when you want to know. So the first step that we are doing now is to look for the members of the working group, and we're going to actively help as board to establish this. So for now, what we would ask is to send an email to alumni@etdigital.eu to show your interest in the topic, and then what we'll do is, with all the people interested, we'll start the work on this group. If you have just an idea and you don't want to join the group just yet, you can always send the ideas to alumni@etdigital.eu as well, so we can pass them on to the working group. But later on, I think we will also have a place to contact these members of this working group directly and discuss ideas with them, pitch ideas, and see how they can work with that. But of course, that will follow in a later stage once we have these people in place.
Perhaps another point to add to this discussion for why are we pushing for a working group is about what I was mentioning at the beginning of some long-term planning or strategy. So we board members are here just temporarily, but the idea is that the working group could continue even after the board changes, right? So it's also to try to establish some stronger basis for these initiatives to continue even after the board changes. We have also some interesting suggestions about creating a digital alumni meeting event series with talks, smaller groups to get to know each other, share success and experiences. But I believe this sounds very similar to what we're doing now. So in case you have any ideas of stories, so success stories and experiences you would like to share, also get in contact with us and we could include you in this online series of events as a speaker. The small comment, the next week we will have a first round of alumni talks. These were originally proposed for the annual meeting, but now we will have these presentations online. So in case you would like to join us also as a speaker later on in one of these events, feel free to drop us an email and we will also include you in the schedule. We have a comment about this. Well, for the recording, I will just say nights. Stories of failure, or what should we do to avoid if we want to improve our career. We also had done some previous research about these types of events, and the format has been registered. So we could do something similar, but we will have to go on a slightly different approach or use a different name because there is a trademark on this format of events. So we would need to pay in order to organize something like this. It's similar as a TED event, that we cannot just simply organize it on our own with that same name. All right, so I think those are most of the comments and questions. Discounts and recommendations for conferences. We also have a comment here. So what could you comment about that? Discounts and conference recommendations, Jeroen?
So I would actually also like to ask, I didn't realize that we already started sharing ideas because there was mostly ideas there. But I would actually like to ask the person that that suggested this to tell us a little more and get some more ideas out of it. Of course, I can say that it's a good idea, but with that, we're not going to get the discussion going. So.
Well, I can think about, for example, some discounts that we have already offered in the past for EAT digital education activities. So for summer schools, we had a discount for alumni members. And also for a professional school, we've been trying to find something similar. Unfortunately, this benefit or this discount has not been used as much as we would like to. And the reason is that all of us have done summer schools. So I'm not sure if this refers to some external conferences, perhaps. We also have some opportunity for members of our community every year to go on tech conferences through the ambassador program or startup competition. Next month, we will announce this year's the opening of this year's contest. So that's also a good way of traveling for free to a tech conference with the support of the Alumni Foundation. We have a question here in the chat from Ashish asks, what is the official channel for information to be up to date with events and other stuff going on?
That's a good question. Well, I would refer first and foremost to our website. I think this is the place where we have all the most up-to-date information in terms of events that are taking place. This is also where we have the full series now of Afterworks published, and this is also a place where local events will be always there. In addition to that, we try to post all the things that are happening on our Facebook, our LinkedIn, and the Twitter channels. But there, of course, it might come a little bit later because of the scheduling and the different things that we have to post there. Yeah. In general, I would say monitor the website and the social media channels if you want to stay up to date. The good thing is, I think you found out about this Tuesday Afterwork, which means you somehow received the information. So that's good.
Yeah, that answers my question. But it's just like sometimes I find getting updates from the website is kind of difficult. Like you always have to go to the website. So if there is any active, because I remember following the WhatsApp channel. No, there is a group in Telegram, I think.
The Telegram one.
Yeah, and then there was another in Slack. So sometimes I feel like all the information is all over the place. So that's maybe something changed. So yeah.
I think it's a good opportunity. It's not really the topic of the call, but it's a good opportunity for me to make a little side note on telling you that our Slack team that we used to have, which was a public place for communication, will be discontinued as of the 1st of July. The primary reason is indeed that there was too many different channels that we would share information on, and this place was really very little used by the community to communicate. So all the others will continue to exist for now. And actually, one thing we're working on that might be interesting for the future, but that's still there that comes out hopefully soon, is a shared calendar that you can subscribe to get all the events automatically in your Google Calendar if that's what you appreciate.
Yeah. Actually, surprisingly, I thought about putting that as a comment, but yeah, it's good that you already thought about that. Amazing. Yeah, nice. Yeah, I think that's the best way. Yeah, that's the best way.
To add also to this discussion from the side of local events, we're trying to also put more effort on communicating through different Facebook groups we have about events that are happening in each local community. So there is a group for the alumni in Berlin, there is a group for the alumni in Stockholm, in Helsinki, etc. So whenever there is an event for the people in that area, it will be advertised through that specific Facebook group. We also have a general Facebook group for all the EIT alumni. Even though many people are not big fans of Facebook, funny enough, we receive lots of Facebook requests to join this group, so even of people who haven't even graduated yet. So that's why we thought that this would be a more effective channel to reach our alumni members than through, for example, Slack, which felt a bit too niche. But yeah, this is a good point, what you mentioned, and that's why we're trying to focus our communication efforts on more specific channels. Of course, there is also the website and newsletter, but those reach the whole community. When it comes to specific local events, my suggestion would be to go through the Facebook groups, which are managed not only by the board, but also by the different local representatives we have in those locations. All right, so I think if we don't have any more questions, we could close this kind of a bit more formal part of the evening, even though the whole event is not so formal. And now we will just have some good old-fashioned online networking. So anyone who wants to join us for the rest of the evening are welcome to do so and stay here on the call. For the ones who are not going to stay here, thanks a lot for joining us. I will invite you again next week for another online session of this Tuesday Afterworks. And we will have the first round, as I was mentioning, of speakers of the annual meeting with the topic of social responsibility in tech. So next week's session will be focused on communities and engagement of users through these communities. So thanks a lot for joining us. And well, that's it for the program. So